Thank you. Well, now we will ask someone to join us. He doesn't need presentation. Javier Arribas Quintana, Council Minister from the European Union in Mexico. Well, good morning, everyone. I will talk down here to make this event a little less formal. Let's relax a little bit. I'm going to be a bridge between the institution side and the essence of the event from today, which is really about presenting recommendations and conclusions about these reports or the studies that we perform, which is an important part of it all. And I will talk about the context at the European level. I don't want to bore you with these. I know that many of you have been joining us for the previous workshops, and we've discussed this political framework in Europe regarding water, and of course, the regulations about forestation. So it's important to give some context to these type of topics. I won't take more than 15 minutes. And well, Laura, you are the one in charge of telling me if I'm going too long with my presentation. So about our two projects, you can consult the information at any time. The two repositories that we have all of the videos, presentations, questions asked, recommendations. And I strongly advise you to have a look at it if you care about it, because there is very valuable information within it, not only about the presentations, but also about the questions and answers that we've had from the expert. We have experts of all kinds, not only from Brussels, but also ourselves who work here, cocoa experts, coffee experts, water basin experts, etc. So all of that information is there in those two links that are at everyone's disposal whenever you choose to have a look at it. Thank you so much for being here, and I want to greet everyone who is joining us online. I think there are a lot of people online. So these two projects are obviously projects that are very related to adaptation. We talk a lot about mitigation and climate change, but not adaptation. So I was telling Laura, let's do something that it's related to adaptations, which is much more important than mitigation. I believe that sometimes we forget that this is a chapter that we need to work on really hard. Climate change is already here, and there are many things left to do to adapt to this kind of situation. So evidently, besides water and forests, there's a lot of things that we can do, and these touches many sides, water and all of the forest ecosystem, and these contributes a lot to the mitigation issues. So in essence, the way that it could be most helpful, or we can help ourselves more in this aspect of adaptation. So in the European Union, we've had a strategy to adapt to climate change from February 21st of 2021. This is a document that helps us as a reference. I strongly advise you to take a look at it, because there's a series of priorities, actions, and patterns that we can use to have the proper measures to deal with this. And well, this adaptation has 3 or 4 priorities that, well, first of all, we have to adapt more intelligently to these. We have to use all of the instruments, all of the data available, a modern methodology so that we can fight against global warming. And well, I'm really summarizing real quick because I don't want to bore you with this. We have to do this fast. We have no time left. Climate change is here now. We have been seeing everything has been going on, temperature changes, forest, water. We will talk about deforestation for human causes, but don't forget that there are many forests in Europe. I know these firsthand because I've seen these type of woods that maybe some bugs are eating, these trees. So this is related to this climate change, the bugs eating the conifers. And even we've seen in the streets, Paso de las Palmas, something happening to a palm tree, a bug that is feeding itself with the palm trees, and happens everywhere, even in Europe. So these are clear manifestations that we have left behind, we haven't considered, and we have to, take action and be fast about this strategy of adaptation. The third aspect, which is very important, is that it has to be a holistic and systemic. The strategy tells us very clearly that the best way to adapt to this is to include the adaptation aspect at all of the society levels, at all of government levels, federal, regional, local, etc. It has to be holistic in the sense that all of the sectors have to be prepared in production, infrastructure, sales, tourism, etc. have to be prepared, and the solutions that will provide better results are the solutions that are fundamentally based on nature, because in reality, this is the mother of all of the solutions. And a fourth aspect of all of these adaptation strategy from 2021, which is very important, and today we have an example of this, it's the aspect of international cooperation. Us Europeans by ourselves are not able to be successful because we need the rest of the world, all of our partners, and well, the cooperation is fundamental for this. So within this aspect of co-financing, all of the joint projects, this is one example of it, are fundamental for this. This is a bit of the context regarding the strategy from the European Union to adapt. And these also conveys mm, endless actions and initiatives that I'm not going to mention right now. But just to provide you context, 2 capital elements of this strategy are water resources, and the forest ecosystems. About water, well, water is fundamental for life and it's everywhere. If there's no water, there's no life. There are some drawings that can indicate the connection that water has with all of the crises that we are going through currently. And it's fundamental to gather all of the strategies that we have with the European Green Pact and to apply these reforms in a coherent way regarding biodiversity, the strategy of zero pollution, our climate laws with circular measures, etc. So this is a series of sectors in which water is fundamental. I'm not going to go further into that. Over here, I can tell you that water, it's not a problem from Mexico only or Latin America. This happens everywhere. Everyone has this problem, and this water crisis is now showing stress problems everywhere. And in Europe, more than 20% of the population currently is going through water stress at some points, and 30% of this 70% of the territory. It's don't think that it's exempt from these problems. There are areas in Europe where these water stress is manifested more seriously, but practically all of Europe is suffering from this water stress and in long time lapses. In this slide, we can see that we are losing cubic meters for availability of water per capita year after year. So you can see that from the year 2000, we have been losing cubic meters of water availability per habitant. So Europe is a territory in which water resources are distributed unequally, and this is a challenge. And this is something that adds up to this water crisis. We think about Sweden, Norway, although they're not a part of the European Union, they have more availability of water than the south of Europe. Malta, which is a rock in the middle of the ocean, has 120 cubic meters of water per inhabitant, which is very little, whilst in Sweden or Norway, they have 40,000, 80,000 cubic meters per habitant. And the difference is very wide. So as we will discuss now, these water basins are most of the time transnational water basins, and this is something that we have to analyze and reconsider the water distribution, etc. Evidently, this climate change accelerates this water crisis, but there are factors that are added up to these, which are anthropogenic, like urban development, the change of soil policies. All of these contributes to accelerate these water crisis that we're facing. What are we doing in Europe about this? Well, for many years now, we've been taking a series of legal frameworks and policies that are trying to solve these water issues. In the middle of these legal framework, we have the key that holds all these judicial framework in the European water system. And well, the definition of water is that water is not only a commercial good and a resource, it's a public good that we have to take care of, and we have to manage sustainably for the future development of next generations. This is something as simple as this has to be said in the law. So this is what our initiative is going to establish. And of course, there are a lot of regulations that are important to this. And one of them is the right of the member states to establish these water plans that are able to properly manage our water resources. We have to establish such plans and implement them with a goal towards 2027 so that these water resources are clean or available in quantity and quality, and so on. So this is a little bit of a summary of what these guidelines says, and also establishing these water basin that it's essential for the management of these these basins, these river basins. As you can see, we can see the main river basins in Europe, and PIC, we can see that these are basins that are international, and the green ones are national. We can see that for instance, and at the south of Spain, the Juca Basin, which goes through Valencia, and the rest of them, Duero, the Tajo, the Guadalquivir, the Guadiana, are transnational basins, the Rin River, and others are these type of basins. That means that we cannot take measures each on their corners. We have to coordinate a lot with other authorities from the sector, etc. So regarding water, some of the recommendations that we have from the strategy of adaptation towards climate change are stated there. First of all, the price. We have to set a fair price for water. Without a price for it, the easiest thing to do is to disregard these resources, and we just let it waste. So we have to manage better these risks for drought, foster these new technologies for watering lands, infrastructure, saving culture, etc., improving knowledge, data, because without knowledge, we cannot establish a proper strategy. Coordination, management plans at authority levels, better regional and local, but also internationally, to improve the risks for drought or flooding, to reduce the use of water, stable supply and safe, and the sustainability in the use of the soil and land. And well, there are a lot of solutions that are mentioned in the strategy and the legislative measures regarding water. So this is a European context regarding water in Europe. And just 2 words about forest. We have discussed this before among all of the workshops, so I won't go into further details. Sorry about that. You have all that information in the repository. I don't want to bore you with these because, well, we've mentioned these many times, and those who have heard it, well, I want to be respectful with you, but numbers are telling us that there's a deforestation rate very big in the world. We have lost 420 million hectares. This is very important. We have 800,000 football fields. This is equivalent to that amount. This is an enormous amount. So we have on the other side these political commitments, etc. And we've said that for the Agenda 2030, the commitment is to stop deforestation by 2020. Well, we're now at 2024 and we haven't been able to achieve that goal. Also the Glasgow Commitment, declaration, we thought that we were going to have a breather, and we don't. And then by 2030, we needed to accomplish it, but we are still having deforestation by 2024. So there's an important gap between the political declarations and what we are actually doing. So this means that in Europe, well, fortunately, we are increasing the forest hectares. Since 20 years ago, we've increased the forest mass and 30%, but on the other hand, we are eating the forest of other countries via commerce, purchasing cocoa beans and coffee and palm oil that is produced in the lands in other countries, and we're creating that deforestation over there in those countries. And the goal for these regulations of deforestation is that Europe doesn't want to be the main forest consumer. We've been that so far. We don't want to contribute to deforestation. This is why we've created these regulations that started in June 2023. It was published by June 2023, and it's going to start its effects by the end of December this year. What does this regulation states? That there are 7 raw materials or products and their derivatives that are important for world deforestation, which are palm oil, soy, wood, cocoa beans, coffee, rubber, and beef, that are contributing substantially to these worldwide deforestation. Some derivative products like chocolate, furniture, etc., are covered also by these regulations. So what do we want to do with these regulations? Well, we said that Europe doesn't want to import or export products that have contributed to deforestation. So how can we do this? Well, we have to set essential conditions. One, that those products have to be produced legally according to the laws of their production countries. And secondly, and most importantly, we didn't have this before. There was legislation about illegal deforestation many years ago, but this free deforestation condition is a new thing and is very new at the international regulation levels. So the products that we're mentioning have to be free of deforestation, and they must not contribute to this deforestation. This is a regulation that doesn't discriminate because it applies to importation and exportation of these products. It's based on international definitions from the FAO to know what's a forestal degradation. We have all of those definitions by the FAO. So we have also a cut date to have this judicial certainty to know where we're going to in this aspect of deforestation. So we said December 31st, the 2020. We have mentioned this in the Agenda 2020. In the goal of 15.2, I believe so, we said that we don't want more deforestation from 2020. And from 2020, those products that have been produced or harvested in territories that have been going through deforestation, but at that time cannot enter the market. They will have to remain outside the market, inwards or outwards from the European Union, both ways. And the central element is the due diligence. It's what operators have to do. The importers and exporters of these products have to abide to those rules, and this due diligence means that the producers have to take a test and see if those raw materials or products that are going to come in or come out of the market have contributed to deforestation. And then accordingly, they will have to declare that the product is free of deforestation and it's legal and so on, so that the customs authorities will decide if this product can leave or enter the market. So that's in essence what this regulation provides. And of course, to apply all of these, a series of requirements are fundamental, like traceability, monitoring. I won't go into further details. Many of you know what I mean with this. And well, we have to set a series of instruments to be able to make sure that these traceability that can take advantage of all of these due diligence elements. And the regulation also establishes some kind of benchmarking of the countries of the world, saying that we want to set apart the problems that could face more problems regarding deforestation for several reasons, and the countries that fundamentally don't have that kind of issue. So we will set them apart, and we will set more strict elements so that we can say that those we could set apart those highly deforesting countries, and we can establish this typology of a comparison in which, well, most countries at the beginning, all of the countries are seen as standard risk, but at some point, we will assess the countries that do not pose a significant risk of deforestation and the ones who do, so that requisites imposed to those countries will be fewer, and the highly risk countries will have different requisites or more requisites. This is part of a series of recovery instruments that are advocating to cooperate with and support these producing countries as well as consumer countries of these products. We work along with production countries and consumer countries such as US, Canada, Australia, China. So I think that we are more or less going towards that direction altogether. There were a lot of some controversy. There was a lot of some of these, and well, the most of the parties are choosing that this is the way that we need to follow. There are many things left to do in these few months before the application of this ruling. And we have established a series of guidelines, commonly asked questions, and these will help us to establish the due diligence as it should. We also have a European Observatory Against Deforestation that is getting started, and it's also providing a series of instruments to facilitate traceability, monitoring, satellite observation, and so on. So that's essentially what I wanted to tell you about. I'm sorry that I'm going through this so fast, but I think that this gives us a little bit of context of what's coming next. That's to say, meat, grains, of all of these hard work for months, carried out with Pronatura and Sustain Loom with their recommendations. I hope that those are very useful for all of us. So with no further ado, thank you so much, and let's continue.